how to be a convincing speaker. We don't speak with the mouth, right? Not even just with vocal cords. The speech proceeds way down there from the belly. A single word said comes from the belly. All the glands activated, particularly glands associated with the realm where the speech is brought into the audible level. That's why we perspire, sweat. That's why we sweat when we speak.
I have a question about the vocalizations I've been experiencing during the meditation, and I've experienced them at home as well. But for me, they carry a therapeutic quality to them. And I had a few people come to me after the last meditation that said the same. And intuitively, I've been feeling a pull to sharing these in the form of recordings, but is this a thing to be shared?
No. Don't go that road. Very well known, not leading anywhere. The least we share on the social media about this work, what we do, up until when you're given your sadhana, it's a bad age now. Social media is a disaster. You only do social media if you need to make a living, and then you have to be smart, you know? Don't do social media when you do sadhana. Always kept private. Steepen it. Keep private. As soon as you share it, you blow it out. Deflate it. Even if the intentions are good. And it's repeatedly, that's like people, you seem to be, you know, some people come strongly. Well, I'm sorry, I want to be of service to humanity kind of thing, you know, like, I want, you know, if it's good, why don't I do that? If it's good now, here, and, you know, like others feel, why not to share? There are many reasons why not to. The main reason why not to is because this all taking place at the very subtle exchange of energy. Up until you have direct, palpable insights into, let's say, nature, provenance of these vocalizations, you are taken in for a surprise just as much as everyone else. Because it happens through you. It's not that you're doing that. It belongs to the greater reactivation of the autonomic nervous system, where things happen spontaneously. You don't do anything. Like we don't do anything to breathe. Right? We don't do anything to digest food. We don't do anything to blink. These are all governed by the autonomic nervous system. You were about to say something?
Yes, I'm a musician, performer, so even whenever music comes in or I'm accompanied by an instrument, it will take over as well, or it will sing through. But well, it's in my own space. It's not like something else.
You're not doing that on stage.
I've not experienced on stage.
And we had this when these questions were asked by performing artists, you know, the musicians. Who remembers that? Remember that? Yeah? So when it happens, like someone asked, what if I'm on stage when, you know, this is my profession, see? What am I to do? So if it happens, it happens. Go with the flow. But I would not do anything as much as, or as little as, trying to invoke it. See? No. Let's not mix apples and pears here. Let's have a clarity. Sadhana is something that needs to be steeped in. Steeped in. Something that you should reverently protect that. I would even go as far as to also be very moderate about speaking about it. Moderate. given analogy of 4 levels of speech, we haven't touched that, but maybe this is fitting to mention that Vaikari, it's also a level where everything is being burned. Therefore, for example, you have some intentions, you want to do something. These intentions have power, but as soon as you vocalize these intentions, you burn them on your tongue. See? So therefore, sharing spiritual experiences have always been considered to be done appropriately in the environment where it is fitting, when maybe even asked for, when this would contribute for the benefit of others, either as reassurance, encouragement, but if it is accompanied by any other factors, let alone ulteriorly slid in motives, some of which we may not be even aware fully, this is not desirable. It's subtle. The more you can steep in that, the greater power will rise in you. Reason why today, there are many sadhakas today, and it seems like pranic field is activated. It's like no longer, it's very becoming more and more common. It doesn't take long today to activate the force. But what interesting, then I find that with all that, nevertheless, there are no real psychic power behind any of these awakenings. Very little, because no one steeps in anything. Immediately lid is open and all that goes into vapor. All goes into vapor. If we want to achieve something, if you want to do something great, we better zip it. Then it begins to brew into something profound. I'm not even talking about CD powers, which are legitimate. Not that they are the goal, and they can be great diversion. A lot is spoken about that. But it's good to have some CD powers, at least in relation to one's own life. It's good to have some powers. These powers can only be a result of something generated. And another thing that we have not touched upon in when we talked about the 4 levels of speech, and this is not even from the point of view of, let's say, Vedic or Tantric philosophies. It is very well known that speech requires tremendous amount of energy. Everyone knows that. Everyone who is to become public speaker, if they want to be good speakers, unless they're gifted from birth and what have you, if they go to these courses, if they go and they get the tuition, if they get some kind of, how to be a convincing speaker. We don't speak with the mouth, right? Not even just with vocal cords. The speech proceeds way down there from the belly. A single word said comes from the belly. All the glands activated, particularly glands associated with the realm where the speech is brought into the audible level. That's why we perspire, sweat. That's why we sweat when we speak. People who act, they disable these glands so that they don't get into the embarrassment of getting sweaty. Why? Because it's a naturally correlated. So tremendous amount of energy is required for speaking. In addition that the speech, audible speech, has the capacity to burn as an expression, but literally burn something which has quality. Also, it depletes us unless speech proceeds in evolutionary direction to uplift others. When that happens, one also needs to be very, very clear what are the motivational ground behind one opening one's mouth and begins to speak. You see? What happens in the political sphere today? Just look around, where there is a continued war for our minds. Because our minds are not just our minds is a fertile territory. So the war for the mind was always in every culture. But right now it's reached this kind of apogee in a way that everyone wants to own our mind. Everyone wants to have an authorship over our minds. So there is a continued war to win your mind into the domain of public consensus. The current military conflict between Russia and so-called Ukraine, because Russia is not fighting Ukraine there. It's a proxy war. If one had real exposure to alternative sources of information, one by now learned a thing or two of what is happening. So, interestingly enough, now the so-called civilized world, facing tremendous problems with the barbarian Russia, because of a lot of things that are said and will be very difficult to do because it's already said. You see? So the analogy here is given, this I've heard, example, that one Chinese diplomat said, why is it in the West that your politicians tend to constantly talk, and talk themselves into a corner, spend years doing that, and then they spend remaining of their career, remaining their lives, to talk themselves out of the corner? Why not to be simply quiet when they don't know what to say, when it's something where silence would be a better way of communicating? You see? I gave this as an example from this so-called horizontal plane of life, as an example. You see? And we did bring the politicians as an example of shift, like what happens at the level of Vaikari, right? This reshuffling. So this, at the level of the speech here, you see, a lot of things are being said, and said in such manner so as to win the collective consensus. Win your mind, win my mind, so we become fully converted into a line of thinking. So this would amount for winning the war, ideologically at least. Whatever happens on the ground, at least the war is won ideologically. We've managed to we've managed to create heroes, and we've managed to create villains. So we've kind of achieved the result, the desired goal, because now the geopolitical, let's say, activity would be seen as a Saint George on a horse. You know what Saint George stands for, right? He's constantly killing the dragon. So to be this Saint George, you need to have dragon to kill. So the dragon has to be somewhere, conveniently. You see? You know, that dragon of post 9/11 is killed purportedly, so that kind of no longer threatening us. So let's create another dragon, right? But in the meantime, a lot of things being said in such way, in such manner, that it's becoming very difficult now to return to the negotiation table, but that's still going to happen one way or another. So the ideological war is not won, because you and I are not stupid, and we have access to information. We can think for ourselves, thank God. But in the meantime, tremendous harm is being done. Because now people who do not have, let's say, access to the information, like you and I, who do not maybe have also the capacity to think for ourselves, like you and I, they are now the victims of these hot air talks. And now, a lot of energy will be spent to talk back. I'm not just, I'm going to go straight, I can go straight to the examples how that is translated. You see? No negotiation with Russians until Crimea is Ukrainian. Or until the Moscow Kremlin burns down, as diplomats are saying these languages. You see? Once these things fly out, then a lot will take to cover this with some other kind of speeches to make sense, because the negotiation will come. The settlement will be achieved. What will happen? How it all will be arranged. You see? This is just one of the examples of what happens when we speak. So therefore, it's best to always steep on these experiences, you see? Steep. And then you see what happens is that an extraordinary transformation, and then you would know when time to speak now, but from a very different level. Speak, sing. Maybe sometimes you would not need to speak. It will come purely from the energetic field. But sadhana to be guarded, not given to a tongue. When Saraswati comes and sits on the tongue, as that expression, the goddess of speech, Saraswati. Have you heard that? Yeah. Of course. So, she is known for, like the goddess. Saraswati is one of the most ancient goddesses. She is transformed, kind of, and became Saraswati in Hinduism as Saraswati, right? But guess who Saraswati was originally? Saraswati was originally the goddess of Vak, the goddess of speech. She is the Mahadevi. She is the one who is wearing all the garlands on her neck, made of vowels and consonants. She is the goddess of speech, of all vocalizations, of all sentences. She is the one. When she comes, as they say, and sit on your tongue, then you no longer speak. Okay, who would like to continue from here?